Welcome to Columbros, the podcast where bros talk about Columbo. It's our Columbo rewatch podcast, and on this episode, we have a stitch in crime. I'm your host, Jeff Grubb, with my co-host, Mike Minotti. Columbro, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I've been looking forward to this. My favorite episode of Columbo, one of my favorite episodes of TV in general, Jeff.
Yeah, I got done watching it, and I said, hell yeah, that is good TV. Because it is. It's fantastic. In fact, I think it's probably not wrong to say that this episode is one of the reasons we wanted to do this show in the first place. It's that good. It is, of course, the episode with Leonard Nimoy as Dr. Barry Mayfield, as, you know, maybe the greatest foil that Columbo has ever had. And we'll get into all the reasons why. But boy, I really enjoy it.
It is so good. Let's just get into it, because there's a lot to talk about, a lot of reasons why it is special, why Nimoy is probably my favorite guest star. And to be clear, you know, I am also a Star Trek fan. I was a big Trekkie. I like Spock a lot. I like Nimoy a lot, but he really is fantastic in this. Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen or heard Leonard Nimoy and not thought, yes, awesome. I love Leonard Nimoy every time, everywhere. I mean, God, Civilization 4 is my civilization almost entirely because he reads the tech tree stuff, and all the things he says, his little quotes that he read, those play in my head all the time when I think about, you know, capitalism or whatever. It is Leonard Nimoy telling me about it. I love it.
His incredible work in the Monroe episode of The Simpsons.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's it's a seminal work. Is a important person to our culture, for sure.
When he does that thing on the Monroe about like the eclipse, he's like, the dance continues wherever that guy's like, does anyone want to change seats? So good.
Very good stuff.
My work here is done. You didn't do anything.
Didn't I?
Oh, he's such a good guest star to have in things.
Yes, he is. He's very good. Yeah, it gets me to pop. Anyway, the summary here, quick summary before we get into the synopsis, is Dr. Barry Mayfield, played by Leonard Nimoy, is an ambitious heart surgeon. He murders his colleague, Dr. Edmund, or he tries to murder his colleague, Dr. Edmund Heidemann, to gain sole control of a revolutionary heart drug research that they're working on together. All right, let's get into the full synopsis now for A Stitch in Crime. We open with an ambulance, because has someone already died? Are we behind the eight ball as an audience? No, but an old timer is getting oxygen, even though he's had enough of it. He doesn't want it. He gets wheeled in through the ER waiting room and put in an examination room. This is Dr. Edmund Heidemann, one of the country's leading heart physicians, we learn. He also seems to be kind of a rapscallion that has a lot of people who like him quite a bit. But he's having his heart checked because the heart doctor has a bum ticker. He is the heart doctor with the bum ticker, and he has.
It's irony.
Yes,
or is it irony or is it coincidental?
Right. Mike could never tell you. Just never know.
Is it like rain on your wedding day?
See, aren't those all coincidences? That's what people said, and I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of
not ironic.
It's not. That's kind not ironic. Yeah,
it's not ironic, don't you think?
Oh boy. Anyway, he's having severe chest pains. He needs a doctor. Heidemann gets up and walks out of the examination room instead and goes to his lab, which is in the hospital. We cut to Spock. That's Spock from Star Trek. Oh, man.
1973, just a few years after the cancellation of Star Trek, the show.
He's doing a Vulcan neck pinch on America's TV watching audience here as Dr. Barry Mayfield, and he's reading a letter, or actually it's a telegram from a Dr. L.C. Breckman to Dr. Heidemann. He is not Dr. Heidemann. It looks like he's maybe reading Dr. Heidemann's telegram. Breckman and Heidemann are working on similar projects, and they have agreed to kind of talk with one another. And Breckman says he thinks he needs a year or more of additional testing for his research. Heidemann shows up. Mayfield slickly hides the letter in his lab coat pocket. Very, very smooth move. Heidemann and Mayfield discuss the current test of their heart transplant on a simian subject. Mayfield says people are asking about the name of the drug because it's going so well. At least that's what people are hearing. So they are developing, they're developing a drug that helps with the transplant rejection problem. He wants to announce the drug publicly. You can tell he's a little bit antsy, but you can also tell he's very good at hiding his feelings about it. Because as he was reading the letter about, more testing, You can tell he was stewing and try to, come up with a plan. But in this moment, he's like just trying to push the subject a little bit with Dr. Heidemann. And I'm like, already, okay, we're setting up the motive here right from the get-go. I actually don't know if this is like the strongest motive, but I think it actually helps the character in the long run. How do you feel about it, Mike?
It works for me because it does kind of set up like the pettiness of this guy and how career focused he is. There's a point where he's, it's very clear, like what he's worried about is not getting the credit for this drug if the other doctor comes out first and they're doing it first. I do love, right after that, Mayfield is like, well, if you say we wait. And, you kind of believe him, but clearly he is not willing to wait.
Yep. Yeah, we'll find out exactly how unwilling to wait he is. Let's see here. Heidemann, they discussed the transplant. But, okay, so at this point, they do leave it at that point. We're like, okay, fine, you say we'll wait. But in comes the nurse to yell at Heidemann for running off from his examination. Mayfield jumps in to scold him too. I am the doctor when it comes to your heart. Let's get you over here to get you checked out. And he tells the nurse, let's get the OR room set up for tonight if possible. And so the nurse kind of takes Heidemann away. And Mayfield slinks back into the office to reseal the telegram, the message that he was reading. He tries to do this in secret, but while he's doing that, the nurse, who is Sharon Martin, returns to get Heidemann's glasses. Mayfield gives her the letter to give to Heidemann, and she says he says he just received it. In this moment, though, we could tell immediately Sharon does not like Mayfield. He doesn't really acknowledge her contempt. Like, she's looking at him like with daggers in her eyes. He doesn't seem to like really even see that, although I also get the sense that he's like purposefully not looking at her so he doesn't see how much she dislikes him. So instead, he assures her about Heidemann coming through the surgery just fine, trying to make it sound like, I know that's what you're worried about, although I get the sense he knows she doesn't like him.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And he's also worried because she probably did or potentially noticed him resealing the telegram that he totally peeked at.
Yep, absolutely. On the way out, she does notice that the letter is open. It seems like this is when she realizes that for sure. And she runs into another doctor who says he gave the cable to Mayfield to give to Heidemann an hour ago. So he didn't just receive it. He'd been sitting with it at least for an hour. So now she has a reason to distrust Mayfield. We're going to cut to Sharon returns to Heidemann, gives him his glasses, his medicine, gives him that letter, a bunch of other things. And she tells him that Mayfield is an opportunist who is reading his letter. And he's not going to want to wait for another year of testing like Heidemann wants to, and like Breckman plans to. Heidemann actually gets pretty angry at this and says, you need to just trust Mayfield. He's a brilliant surgeon who Heidemann trusts to perform his own surgery on his heart. So you can at least do the courtesy of trusting him as much as I do.
Yeah. Heidemann seems like a nice guy, maybe not a great judge of character.
Yeah, and I think he's been surrounded by, like, he's probably a heart surgeon as well. Like, he's working in research now, but at one point he was probably a surgeon. He is probably used to this, like, cocky attitude that people like this guy has. But I think in this moment, he has not seen, like, just the extent to which Mayfield is willing to go.
And, I mean, the nurse even, I think, mentions at this point that, like, this is Heidemann's project, really, first and foremost.
Yes.
Mayfield came onto it kind of later. But, like, she already gets the sense that Mayfield definitely wants not just the credit over Breckman, the competing doctor, even maybe more so than Heidemann.
Right. He is fully taking, he's taking half credit alongside Heidemann. But if he could, he would take full credit. All right, so we're going to cut to the surgery. It is happening later that night. Heidemann is getting his surgery. Mayfield is leading. And Sharon is keeping her eye on Mayfield. In this situation, she is just like, her trust is so deep at this, or her distrust is so deep that she is spending this entire surgery just watching his every movement. She's doing this so much that she doesn't hear Mayfield's request for a sponge. That happens again when he asks for the suture. She's just like in her own world, like looking at this guy, seeing like, what is he going to do? But the surgery is a success. And you get the idea that she was worried about, like, is he just going to let him die on this table? Because if that happens, he gets full credit for the research when it actually does go public. But, in the moment, she's like, wow, that surgery did go very well. And she is relieved. So it's, so she's relieved. But she does notice something on the ground. She picks up a suture that looks a little bit odd to her, and she begins rubbing it between her thumb and forefingers. And it's like, that feels weird. And we actually see in the mirror as Mayfield is washing his hands, he sees her do this, but she doesn't notice that he can see her. So she keeps kind of looking a little bit closer, and she's like, there is something off about this, although she doesn't know what, and we certainly don't know what at this point. Do you remember, like, when you first watched this episode, what you were thinking in this moment?
At this point, no, I wasn't super sure. She had suspicions, but it was clear that there is something weird about the suture, which is, pretty important when it comes to heart surgery.
Yes, right. And I guess there's a chance people won't know. Sutures, basically the thread that you use to sew things up during surgery, and it can be made to last for a long time.
Suture is very important in this episode.
Yes, exactly.
It's the word of the day.
Yeah,
as they would say on Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse.
Word of the day. Exactly. The chair's going to go crazy for this. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so he sees that happen. We cut to her picking up the phone later to call someone because she's holding the suture still. But as she does that, Mayfield walks in right away, and so she hangs up without actually completing the call. She's like, "Oh, the line was busy." Mayfield presses.
She's like, "Oh, no, go ahead, do the call." She's like, "Oh, the line was busy. It's fine."
Yep, yeah, and he does keep pressing her.
This is a tense scene, Jeff.
Yes.
This is a tense scene.
Exactly. Like, it really establishes just how chilling he can be, and it's the first step of that. He gets much more chilling than this, but it's like this is a good first peek at that, right?
Yes, absolutely, and obviously, I think Nimoy was picked for this one because he's so good at sort of playing an emotionless character. And there's definitely some of that here, but it's sort of turned into this kind of sociopath, right?
Yes.
Who, like, when emotions are being shown, they somehow never quite seem sincere. And you never really are quite sure what he's thinking.
It really is a little bit the Twilight Zone of what if Spock was a human and what that would mean. Like, because Spock can handle being just logical, but if the person that was, or if a person was that way and had no emotions, that could be a scary thing. And that does seem to be what they're going for here a little bit. She, kind of gives in to his pressure a little bit and says she knows the suture doesn't feel right. And so she just says it. If Heidemann dies, Mayfield gets to take over the research project, so maybe Mayfield did something during the surgery that will cause Heidemann to die without anyone really noticing. And he's like, he doesn't give anything in here. In fact, he turns on what I called, Spocky turned on the Gaslighting 5000 machine. He goes so very hard here. I mean, you're right. This is what makes it so tense. Is he just he goes demon mode in terms of making her feel crazy. So he says, I didn't know you were so obsessive. If I were you, I'd have that suture checked out. If you think I've done something that will cause a lovable old Heidemann to drop dead in a few days, I'm sure the police would love to know about it. You should take this to them. But before you lose yourself in your hysteria, can you label and store these vials? And
it's that last line, right?
Yeah, it's just like, you should do your job. But if you're going to give into this hysteria and, be a crazy woman about it, I guess you can go ahead and tell the police like a crazy person would. It is really effective writing, and it's like really sets the tone for the rest of this episode. All right.
I like this note here from you. It made you feel like you were crazy for thinking he was the killer, and you've seen the episode before.
Absolutely. It's like, God, you're right. I'll go to the police. Am I an idiot? Like, it really is that effective.
Right. Even like before that, just the way he tricks her into telling him what she's thinking when it's something she should totally keep to herself. She should not voice these suspicions out loud. He's a manipulator.
Yep. And, I think that is one of the things of this episode is we're supposed to see like what happens when this person runs into other different kinds of people. And Sharon's supposed to just be this very caring person, someone who does nurses work because it was their calling. What happens to her when she gets in this guy's way? Well, we'll find out. All right. So anyway, he leaves. She calls someone to check into the suture. Like she wants to actually find out what's going on here. Mayfield in the other room picks up the phone to hear her make plans to meet someone at 8 a.m. She sits down.
Remember when you could just do that, by the way? Just pick up the phone in the house and hear what other people are talking about?
Yeah, right. God, you're right.
Not that I ever.
Yeah, that is, you're right. I hadn't even thought about that. Like, that is something that might be confusing to like a kid watching this today, that they wouldn't understand that all the phone lines were connected.
Right.
She writes down a note about someone called Mac, M-A-C, all capital. Cut to
not Little Mac.
Not Little Mac, Big Mac. That's right.
And this big fight against Glass Joe.
No, this is good. You can get this one at McDonald's. Sharon going to her car in the parking garage is what happens next. Mayfield actually is waiting for her, though, and does the Vulcan tire iron death pinch on her. Just hits her with a tire iron right in the head.
Right. Kind of calmly walked up to her, too. Like, again, looking like a total sociopath. Right? It's a creepy scene.
Yep. And she looks at him like she does not recognize this as a human. Like, his behavior is so alien to her that she doesn't realize, like, she never considered, really, that he would just violently murder her. Like, that's something that was not in the line of possibility for her. That's the look on her face. And he looks like, this is just what I got to do. And that's how he's behaving. It is so frightening.
Doesn't seem to hesitate too much.
Nope. All right. Let's see here. So, she dies, and he removes the suspicious suture from her purse. And we don't see much else happening in that scene, but more happened. We'll cut to Columbo. He's here, everybody. And this is, I did note here, this is interesting because he did have one murder victim in mind, but Columbo shows up before that character ever even dies. It's a secondary character that just kind of got in the way that brought Columbo into this.
It's one of the unique things about this episode is like the real target is a ticking time bomb. This entire episode here, and the initial murder victim is just a victim of finding out about it and being silenced as part of the cover-up.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, it's interesting because Mayfield does have power over him in some ways. All right, so Columbo's showing up to the crime scene in the parking garage where Sharon was killed, and he's sweepy. He's
pretty early.
He's a sleepy boy, yeah, and his wife isn't feeling well, which I know that happens. That can keep you up a lot of nights. But he did bring some breakfast, a hard-boiled egg that he begins peeling right in the middle of the crime scene. Starts dropping eggshells right down there, and I'm like, what is this? Is this the 70s thing? They just didn't know that that's a bad idea. Nope. So it turns to him and was like, please don't fucking do that. What are you doing, Columbo? And even Columbo's he's like that. Honestly, I think Columbo's just like, this stuff never helps me solve anything. Why do I care about any of it? That's the sense I got.
Remember when they show him the murder weapon, the tire iron, and he's like, are there prints on it? They're like, no. Okay, hold still. And he cracks the ink on it.
It's incredible.
He's not like Columbo.
It's just like, but that is where we are in the series, where it's like, Columbo's just like, yeah, this shit never matters. Of course, there's no prints on it.
Like, there's no prints on it. Okay, that's everything I need to know about that thing.
Yeah, and I think
contaminate it with my egg now.
He even said, like, there never are. Like, when like prints, there never are. Yeah,
right, exactly. It doesn't seem like he's in control. It's not. It can almost come across as callous. He doesn't care, and you know that's not the case. Yeah, it's the Columbo intros are always just so good. You could tell. I bet people loved writing these scenes. Yeah.
Honestly, I bet the writers on the show had a pile of them each. Here's what we're gonna do in this episode. I'm just gonna pick one off the pile and see if it's gonna fit this episode.
Here's Columbo's gonna walk around with a hard-boiled egg.
Yes, and be tired and ask everyone he sees for coffee, no matter who they are. It's just
God, I love this character.
Me too. Much. He's fantastic. All right, cut to Mayfield holding Sharon's keys and presumably sitting outside her apartment. She's dead, but he's at her apartment, and it seems like he's waiting for a woman to leave. This is probably her apartment mate, and he must know that she has someone that she lives with. But she leaves, so he enters the victim's home, and he begins tearing the place apart. And he's staging a break-in, and then he plants some morphine. We see him like holding up some morphine, and clearly the idea is he's going to plant that for whatever part of as his plan continues to unfold.
If the murder itself here maybe seemed a little hasty, because it did have to be hasty.
Yes.
This is where maybe we get the diabolical mind coming into play, and we're beginning to see how formidable Mayfield can see, because we get the idea of a relatively well thought out plan here to get away with this killing.
Yes, he at least gets several steps ahead of most normal people, or where most normal people would be in an investigation for him. So he does establish quite a timeline of, hey, this makes sense if we just kind of write this off as a drug abuser trying to break in and get drugs. That seems to fit with what is happening here. All right, then we go back to Columbo, who does still need coffee. They can't find him any, though, so they just give him a big jug of OJ. He's just chugging orange juice for the next couple of minutes. He does get some more info, though. Someone searched Sharon and her car thoroughly, that presumably being the murderer. Also, they found the murder weapon, the tire iron, which Columbo does use to crack the egg, because he's the perfect cop. He's just
the best.
He's the best.
Sorry, RoboCop.
No, yeah, RoboCop understands. He gets it.
RoboCop has to eat his baby food. Real men eat hard-boiled eggs.
We are bouncing back and forth. Now we bounce back to Mayfield as he's getting ready for his day back at the hospital. You can tell he's also trying to establish, like, this is when I'm going to learn about Sharon. So he calls for his messages. Hey, have I got any messages? Oh, no? Okay, that's fine. Hey, what about my 10 a.m. surgery? Well, that's been postponed. Why is that? Oh, because Sharon is dead. Someone killed her. What? No way!
It's such a good job of, like, sounding sincere and yet obviously not being sincere, right?
Yeah, and it's like, again,
layers.
It goes to that sociopath element here. That is who they are trying to portray here. Someone who can always mimic the emotions they need to, but when you look at them, if you were to look at them and they didn't know that they also needed to mimic that in that moment because he's alone in his office, you would see something wrong there. And someone is there to see something wrong. Columbo, who was trying to find Mayfield to ask him some questions. While he's doing that, he's just like, I'm just trying to find out about her personal life. Mayfield doesn't really have too many answers. He's like, she was closer to Heidemann. I didn't know her that well. I knew her, but not like that. So I'm not going to be much help. Columbo goes, okay, you know what, though? I am impressed by you. You must have that surgeon's concentration. Since, after all, you were able to reset a clock while getting the news about Sharon. So when he did get that news, he was going, what? No way. This is the most surprising thing I've ever heard. While saying that, while sounding sincere, he was coldly just picking a clock off his desk and resetting the timer on it, winding it up, setting it back down as maybe some of the most normal behavior you've ever seen someone do. Columbo witnessed all that and was like, that's just, when most people hear that someone they work with died, they can't do anything, let alone a manual task like that. And, I think Mayfield plays it off pretty well, where he's like, it was just a reflexive action. I don't even remember doing it. And I think I probably would have bought that in that moment, Mike. But obviously Columbo has seen stuff like this before. At this point, we can begin to say this isn't his first rodeo. He's seen people behave in this way before when they are getting news like this, and he knows what it usually means there's something rotten in the state of Denmark.
Yeah, it's always kind of fun to pinpoint the moment in the episode where Columbo is suspicious or maybe even figures it all out right.
Right.
And we get that here. What I like and what isn't always the case is that Mayfield sort of immediately recognizes it and takes Columbo seriously,
yes.
Which a lot of the killers don't. They don't consider him formidable. They consider him a goofball or a nuisance, and you do not get that impression from Mayfield.
Yes, Columbo does try to activate goof mode. He does try to okay, I'm going to tell, and part of it is, it's a real thing. Columbo does get queasy in hospitals, but he makes a big deal about it. He's like, Doc, I just hate being in hospitals. God, I can't, it's embarrassing for me. In my line of work, I faint. And is there anything I can do? You're a doctor. You're someone who can help me, and I'm someone who needs help. And you're right. You get the sense Mayfield's like, look, just stay out of hospitals, but I'm taking this seriously. I'm listening to you. That would be embarrassing. And I think that is just, he can't help but that be the response, because he knows that that's what most humans want in that moment. And he's never dismissive, because that would reveal that he doesn't care, which is the truth. So yeah, I think that I think that might also kind of set Columbo back a little bit. You're right.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so Mayfield goes and talks to Heidemann about Sharon. He tells him that she is dead. Heidemann's like, I can't believe that. But Mayfield is like, hey, Columbo's going to figure it out. He's on the case. If anyone can figure it out, it is this Columbo fellow. And Mayfield,
he's almost like rizzing up Columbo already.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's I think it's sincere. I think he's already is impressed by Columbo.
Yeah, right. I think you're right. It's because why there was no real reason to lie to Heidemann, I guess, other than to have him not look into it or reach out to him. But
yeah, to satiate Heidemann, sure.
Yeah, a little bit. And then Mayfield tells Heidemann he's going to need a few more days in the hospital. Now, he can do that because it's true. He's going to need to recover from the surgery. But also, this keeps Heidemann away from Columbo, because Mayfield gets to control who gets to see Heidemann. And if Columbo comes in there to see him, he can always send him away and be like, this is too much for a man who just had heart surgery. So this gives Mayfield plenty of control over the situation, something that he really wants. All right, so Columbo's going to get out there, hit the pavement. He goes to talk to Marcia Dalton, who is Sharon's roommate at their apartment. It's the woman we saw leaving earlier when Mayfield was sitting outside. She is not helpful, Mike. He asks her about, he asks her a lot of questions, and he is just like rubbing his temples. He's still tired, still sleepy, but also her answers are all about like, I'm just not a good person. I work as a nurse, but for plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills. I'm selfishly like to be around middle class people. It's like Columbo hates all of this. It's very funny.
It's a Swiss scene of levity, which is a bit needed.
Yes, exactly. All right, so she isn't helpful, but another detective interrupts to show Columbo something hidden in the bathroom, and it is those vials of morphine. Columbo grabs them right away with a handkerchief, brings them out to the detectives and the crime scene investigators, who immediately dust it for prints. There aren't any prints at all. Columbo kind of rubs his head. He's like, oh, man, what the hell? That's weird. All right, we back over to a swanky party at Mayfield's home. This is all the same day. You know, I guess it's important to note that the timeline here is pretty compressed. Big reason for that is it all does have to happen within the days following the surgery that Heidemann has. So a swanky party at Mayfield's home. He lives in a nice home in Beverly Hills, which gives us a good view as Columbo's beat up hoopty arrives. It's just like coming around the hill, and you can like see it down down there, like coming up the winding streets or whatever. He enters the party and he gets offered some hors d'oeuvres and instead goes to eat some cheese because he's just
hors d'oeuvres are too fancy.
Too fancy. I tried to spell hors d'oeuvres, HORDERVES. I knew
that's
that
not correct.
I knew that wasn't right. I know there's an apostrophe in there somewhere, but I did not care.
It's HOUR, and then maybe the apostrophe shows up. Look, I'm not saying I know, but I think I could do better than you.
I think, yes, I agree. I was in a moment where I was like, I don't even care to get this one right.
You just phonetically get there. We did it.
Yeah, exactly. Mayfield notices Columbo through a window, and he comes in the house to talk to him. Mayfield gets pretty bored as Columbo recounts all the reason he hasn't eaten today. Basically just saying, I'm going to eat a lot of the food at your party, and you're just going to have to deal with that. Another pretty funny scene.
You don't mind. It's a great scene.
Yep.
Just like pigging out on this buffet line happening there. You know, I do like that Columbo, like, he doesn't even ask. Mayfield knows to be like, oh, yeah, the party, I was going to cancel it, but, you know, it wasn't really enough time. And, you know, it is the same day. Maybe he could have canceled the party anyways, but it's just enough where it's like, yeah, maybe, I don't know. You said you weren't that close to her. It's a little weird.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I think Columbo's thinking what he usually says in situations like this is, you know, normal person cancels the party. But, you know, maybe I don't know. And he doesn't say that here. Yep. They go outside to talk, though. Columbo does have questions. So they go outside, and Columbo says there's been a new development in the case. Her apartment was torn up, just like her car. Mayfield confirms that Sharon had... and they found drugs. And Mayfield confirms that Sharon had access to drugs. Columbo also asks about a note that she wrote about a man named Mac. But Mayfield has never heard of him. This whole time, though, Columbo has been feasting, just been chowing down, like eating between every word, he's taking a bite. So now he has a hurted tummy, and he needs some medicine. Mayfield takes him inside, gives him something, and even writes him a prescription. Says, take this in the morning if these other things don't help. So, again, just like knows when to activate the caring mode. And I think this would disarm most people. I think it weirds Columbo out, though. There's something about it where just he's like, this is a bit much. I think he could see the act.
Yeah, you're right. No, Columbo's the best judge of character, and he already clearly has targeted Mayfield as suspicious, if not downright the person. Although he has no motive right now, right? And he doesn't really understand all the stuff with Heidemann at this point, but he knows there is something up with Mayfield, and there's just some weird vibes about him.
Columbo, though, while, you know, he has an upset tummy, he's actually more bothered by the fingerprints. There weren't any on the morphine or the murder weapon. All they had maybe were some glove smudges. And Columbo says that just doesn't sound like a drug addict. And, you know, Mayfield tries to say, well, I just don't know what drug addicts would do. I can't be helpful. But Columbo's like, okay, yeah, it's weird. Columbo leaves, and Mayfield immediately makes a call to Marcia, the roommate. We cut to Mayfield and Marcia discussing Sharon, kind of on a pier somewhere in LA. Mayfield has an idea. What if Marcia could remember someone that might have been looking for drugs? I just, learned about the drug-seeking behavior, maybe the reason for this murder. Can you think of anyone? Like, say, someone from the drug clinic that she used to work at. In fact, Mayfield says to Marcia, who doesn't really seem to remember anything, didn't Sharon once mention a man named Harry? That finally clicks things into place for Marcia, who says Harry Alexander. And then immediately Mayfield says, you should go tell the police about it. She agrees, but first she wants to experience that famous Dr. Mayfield Pond Farm, Mike. She is ready for it.
He says no.
He's
Absolutely
like,
not.
No, thank you. I'm going to take you home. And you should tell the police about this.
She's like, this scene is incredible. Just the way that Mayfield the entire time is like, I bet if we work together here, you'll remember everything. And it helps that we already established that Marcia is not a very bright person, doesn't understand how she's being so obviously manipulated here. It's a pretty heavy hand that Mayfield has. It's like, I think you stumbled onto something very important right there, Marcia. Like, oh, wow, I can't believe you remember this. So blatantly guided to come to this conclusion.
Yeah, and I think this is where I was also getting pretty impressed by, I am aware of shows representing psychopathic behavior in people. I've seen a lot of that in my life. I don't know when that became popular knowledge or pop science or whatever, but I definitely get the sense that whoever wrote this episode had a lot of that stuff in mind, where it's like, okay, yeah, Mayfield wants something from this person. He doesn't fully understand actually that she is coming on to him. And when he says, no, I'm just going to take you home, he doesn't actually handle that as deftly as he handles some situations. Like, he is missing some cues. Like, the normal cues of someone saying, I don't feel good. He knows what to do in that circumstance right away. I give you medicine. When someone's like, I am sexually attracted to you and want you to be maybe a potential boyfriend here, that's something he doesn't see as frequently. So he doesn't even know he should be responding to that. Just says, I'm going to take you home. I need something from you. You need to call the police. It's like there's something missing from him. And when he wants something, he is focused on that first and misses some of the other parts that might have helped him smooth some of the stuff over. All right. So that's the end of that scene. We cut to Columbo waiting for them both at Marcia's home. I think he's trying to see some stuff. It's Sharon's home as well. And he sees that Mayfield is dropping her off, and he's hiding behind a bush.
I do love him behind the bush.
Me too. I like any character in a show behind a bush for some reason. It's always a funny image.
You love when Homer disappears into that hedge.
I love that. I love in Wet Hot American Summer where the old guy who's trying to date the teenage girl is just behind a very small branch, and that's supposed to be hiding him. There's some good stuff in that. He comes out, Columbo comes out when she begins walking to her apartment, where they go together while he has a sneezing fit. They're both going to go to the apartment because he needs to check some stuff. She gives him a home remedy, and he asks Marcia about Sharon's personal life. And she immediately offers up, you should look into Harry Alexander. Columbo, I think, has a pretty good idea of what has just happened here. And so he asks, why did you just come out with that? Most people look for clarification when they're asked about someone else's personal life. Do you want to know, when they get home from work or who they're seeing? But you just said, Harry Alexander, and that's it. And she explains, there's a good reason for that. Me and Dr. Mayfield were just talking about him. And he said, oh, okay. So you called him up to say, hey, I've been thinking about this guy. She's like, no, he called me. He wanted to check on me. And we just started talking about Harry. Eventually, she says it I remembered Harry Alexander after Mayfield said Harry's name. He's like, oh, okay. And that's, you can tell Columbo's that's exactly what I expected happened here. This is him trying to move you in a direction to manipulate us. And at this point, the game is up, but Columbo just needs to put it all together, right?
Yeah, this is probably where Mayfield overstepped, right? And the killers always do this. They always overstep. They always get too helpful. That's not exactly what happened here, but yeah, this was a step too far. And he does it because he's nervous, because he realizes that Columbo is not necessarily going down the exact path that he wants him to. So there's this nudge, and it's too much of an edge.
I mean, it really is the idea of tweeting through it, right? Doing something's got to be better than doing nothing. And all the killers are guilty of that, right? So I think you're onto something there. All right. So she remembered Harry's name after Mayfield said it. We cut to Heideman's hospital room. Let's see here. Columbo wants to finally talk to him. Like, why was Sharon so upset? And, it was probably because of the procedure. That's kind of what they talk about. But Mayfield shows up as they're kind of really getting into things to shoo Columbo away from Heidemann. He asks Mayfield about Harry Alexander, though. They kind of get down the hallway and have a little bit more of a conversation. Well, of course, Marcia mentioned him. Mayfield wants to do, Marcia mentioned him to Mayfield, and Mayfield wanted to do everything he could to help. So he went to see Marcia. I'm sorry, I mixed that up. But Sharon told him about this guy before. So Mayfield wanted to go see Marcia to maybe discuss this and see if that could help. And then he's like, once she did remember him, she's like, she should handle this because she knew a little bit more because she was actually the roommate. Columbo gets a call because he always gets a call. This is the sewer level of Columbo episodes, right, Mike? Where we always get one of these, just like we always get a sewer level.
The call for Columbo. It always tickles us, the idea that, like, people just have to, Columbo has to tell people the places he's going that day in case they need to call him, and they just call those places and say, where's Columbo at?
I suppose adults did have to do this if they had important jobs, right? I just was never an important adult, like when this was a thing. By the time I was an adult, I had a cell phone, and for a second there I had a pager. So it's just a very strange thing to see. I guess it would be weird to see Columbo with a pager, which is something that certainly did exist at that time, but that would be odd. That's just not something Columbo would have. All right, so the police have located Harry Alexander, though. That's what the call is about. We cut to Columbo at, I think, a petting zoo. I don't know.
Petting zoo, a park, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, there's like animals there, and I think Harry Alexander's working there as a guy who's like helping kids feed the animals. So that's what's happening. Columbo kind of slowly comes up to him to talk to him. And Harry says, I haven't seen Sharon for 6 months. 6 months. I was a drug addict, but I've been clean and straight for a long time now. She was special to me, is how Harry describes her. I met her during my withdrawal therapy. We got very close. Then, Columbo's like, well, then if you're very close, why haven't you seen her in 6 months? And he says, she broke it off because I was using her as a crutch. Also, no one ever called me Mac. Columbo asked about that as well. Columbo's like, yeah, I didn't think anyone did. Yeah. Also, I believe everything you're saying. And it's like, this is a very sincere character, and I believed it as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is another example of we see how Columbo acts differently and acts maybe more like, a real detective towards people he's not really suspicious of.
Yep.
Right? Especially these people who are more, blue collar, right? That kind of thing.
I think, and he gives everyone the space to tell the truth. And, the people he's usually investigating never do that. And so I think he's expecting anyone who's really innocent to kind of just fall right into that. And they always do. And so he feels very comfortable just trusting this guy.
It's making us feel even worse about the murder of the nurse because it's like, oh, she volunteered to help, drug addicted veterans and things like that. It's like, geez.
And we found out that like she did stop doing this after this because she was so affected by it that she's like, it was like too much for her. Like she was so emotionally involved that she needed to like move on from that part of her life. It's like, man, yeah, this sounds like a very special person. All right, cut to Columbo searching through Mayfield's and Heidemann's lab, and Mayfield shows up, and he's like, "What the hell? You're supposed to be getting Harry Alexander. What are you doing here?" But Columbo says he's looking for more evidence. He needs to know who Mac is. He thinks that's super important. But also, this is really a scene where Columbo wants to steer things back to Mayfield, as Mayfield is trying to steer things away from him and towards Harry Alexander. It is a fork in the road moment, and it's the way that these shows often go. These are two forces butting up against one another, and like, let's see what happens, Columbo's thinking, when I try to put the ball back in his court and say, I know what you tried to do, what now? And I always love these scenes.
Right, and yeah, this is almost a little bit early for this much of a hardball scene at this point, but you kind of get the sense that he is at a little bit of a dead end here. He does not really have a motive. And that's a big issue for him at this point. Of course, he doesn't have the motive, because the motive is really, again, with Heidemann. And that is something he hasn't pieced together.
But Columbo doesn't think it's drug-related, and he just says that to Mayfield. Even though, Mayfield's trying to be like, you should be going to get the guy that was trying to get the drugs. And Columbo's like, I'm just not convinced. The glove smudges on the weapon and the drugs doesn't sound like a drug addict. And everyone says she was a saint, so it's really hard to believe that she is someone that would have been providing drugs to someone, especially someone she was trying to save. And like, she had to quit doing that work because it was too much for her. That's how much she wanted to save him. And she like did have a special relationship with this guy, and she cut that off because she wanted him to keep growing beyond her. Like, that is saint-like behavior. So he knows for sure all that stuff is in the clear. So he wants to find out what is going on with Mac instead. And, you know, he does get to the point where it's like, okay, the morphine, though. The morphine is bizarre. That is weird. And so Columbo just says it at this point. The only answer I can come up with is that maybe somebody put it there to make it look like that's why she was killed. Besides, and then he asks, besides yourself, who else had access to this drug cabinet? Mayfield's ears go pointy at this and says, as far as I'm aware, I got him in there. I got a few of those. Yeah. As far as I'm aware, no one but myself and Dr. Heidemann had access. And he like, Mayfield's now going, or, you know, with his face going, I know what you're doing. And he decides in this moment, let's change the strategy a little bit. He goes, are you insinuating that I put those bottles in her apartment? Columbo
confronts him right there. Right? A lot of the killers kind of still try to play coy, even at this point, but he goes on the offensive.
And I think it's like, because this is a very analytical person, a very smart person, he probably does have a pretty good understanding of what Columbo would need to actually do something to him. It's like he's not really worried about Columbo knowing the truth. He's worried about what Columbo can prove. And he knows he really holds that card, as you pointed out, by controlling Heidemann. So, and Heidemann could die at any point. So he might be in the clear here pretty soon. Columbo tries to play stupid. And so Mayfield turns it back on, says, Lieutenant, I had no motive to kill her. And Columbo says, what? Of course not. But you know, one more thing. The cleaning person saw Sharon after the operation and said she was more upset then than during the operation or before. And he's like, you know, why would she be so upset after a successful operation? Anyway, he's just like, basically, I'm going to let you stew on that and get out of here. And Mayfield does stew, then gets up, grabs some more drugs from the cabinet, and does the eyebrow thing.
Yeah,
he did it, Mike.
Oh, he's got to do it. He's very good at raising that eyebrow, right?
Yep.
Like not until Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson would anybody compare again. He was a master of his craft at the time.
Yep, and it is a very like striking image. I don't think he actually arcs it as much as he does as Spock sometimes. Obviously, his eyebrows are different as Spock, so that helps. But still, I don't think he does it quite as extreme. But it's enough.
There might be one more eyebrow thing.
He might be saving it. Yes, exactly. All right, now we cut to Mayfield slinking into Harry Alexander's apartment, and I'm like, first time I saw this book, I was like, oh no, oh no. And he preps the drugs and attacks Harry when he gets home. He puts a little chloroform on his mouth, a little morphine in his veins, and this is another murder in this episode. So we're at 2.5 at this point.
Right. It's pretty chilling the way he's just sitting in Harry's apartment waiting for him. Just kind of sitting perfectly still, right? It's pretty creepy. Just, yeah, it's like, it's, you know, with the murder on the nurse, we didn't see a lot of that, right? It was kind of filmed, like we saw his hand. Not too much. There's something about this that even for a Columbo murder, it's kind of visceral, even though it's not very gory per se. We see him inject the blood. We see Harry's kind of reaction to it and the, you know, horrible drug stupor he's in before he dies. It's pretty chilling.
Yeah, at this point, it's like they are making a bit of a monster movie. Like he is, you know, they didn't show the first kill, kind of like a Jaws situation, right? And now they're like, no, you need to understand what we're dealing with here. And all of that kind of is putting money in the bank for later in the episode where it does eventually break Columbo. I'm going to keep saying that, Columbo. And it's like they have to earn that. And it's, boy, they are 100% doing that in a moment like this, where it's like, you know, he sympathizes with a lot of people he's investigating. At a certain point, that's going to break him with this character because it's just not the same thing.
Right. He'll have a quote in a future episode of Columbo. It's like, sometimes he even like grows to like the killers in this, you know, he admits in this kind of weird, twisted way. That is not the case here. This is going to be the second murder victim. He's going to figure out pretty soon there's potentially a third. And we've seen two people get killed by a killer in an episode. It happened, in that first episode, right? It's happened before, but there's something like, this guy is maybe not done yet.
Yep.
Pretty wild. He'll do whatever it takes at this point. He's all in. He went all in on the first hand, and now who knows what he's capable of.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the guy who just is the crazy person at the poker table. Yeah. All right. We got a new scene here. Columbo telling Mayfield about finding Harry. Mayfield is all like, well, don't you feel like a dumb bitch now? Columbo says, no, I don't. Yeah, he was dead, but and he had drugs and he was high. And I know I don't feel dumb at all. Someone drugged him. He was smoking left-handed yesterday when I met him, and yet we found him with a needle track in his left arm. That's way too awkward for someone who is left-handed. And that's just, 100. No way on earth would someone who's left-handed inject drugs into their left arm. There's no way that would happen.
The old, well, actually, their left-handed thing, not exactly the most creative detective twist here, but we don't need to linger on this one too much. This isn't the real mystery. We all know what happened.
Yep.
He knows what happens even without this left-handed malarkey. He just needed some kind of proof or evidence to go on at this moment. And there's no doubt in his mind now, this is Mayfield, and how incredibly dangerous is he, because he is just going around killing people. He doesn't even know that he's trying to get involved. First he's just trying to get this poor guy blamed for the murder. Now he's trying to kill him to cover his tracks more, to throw people off the scent even more.
Yeah, I think, and I was reading the Columbo File blog post about this episode. Great website. We always want to shout it out. I think they called this the most senseless killing in Columbo history. And it really, like, the one where it's like, this didn't have to happen. This is like, there is no justification here. This is just cold-blooded as it can possibly be.
Right. This veteran who's getting over his drug addiction had a nice job. He was a contributing member to society again. Even Columbo seemed to kind of take a shine. There's that part when Columbo's talking to him where Harry was like, hey, look, if anybody finds out that I was a user, my job here's done. And Columbo's like very clear. No, I'm not going to tell anybody. Fine. Yep. So, we don't necessarily, Columbo's not going to show it here yet, but you kind of get the sense maybe that deep down, like this is starting to perhaps piss Columbo off, all of these killings from this guy. Yep.
Yeah. Again, it's like, I think he tells himself a story with a lot of the other killers where it's like, if I was in their shoe, what would I do? Here, there's no question that this is beyond the pale. So Columbo says it looks like someone is going to a lot of trouble to make it look like Harry did it. And Mayfield points out that only Marcia and himself knew about Harry. And Columbo says that's true. And Mayfield tries to say maybe Marcia knows more than she's telling. And this Columbo's like doesn't even entertain this at all. He's like, actually, I think she knows less than she's telling.
That's such a good line.
Very good line. Because she literally does. Because like she was told to say something about Harry. She knows less than she is telling. She told something. She didn't even really know what she was saying. Lieutenant, what reason would I have for killing her? That's Mayfield's response because he knows what's happening here. And this is a good bit. On Peacock, when you start up the episode, they have a little like teaser of what's going to be in the episode. Something I actually do like, kind of gives you something to like look forward to. I can't wait till we get to that moment.
I'm a big close my eyes and cover my ears person for those, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I think most people probably are that way, or try to skip them if you can. Do that, but I don't. I like that. For this one, this is one of those things that they did show here, where he says, "You ask tough questions, Doc," and that's Columbo talking to Mayfield, and Mayfield says, "So does a jury," and just walks away. At this point, I'm like, fuck, this game is on. They are going at it. Everyone knows what's going on. Like we've had episodes before where it's like, okay, yeah, everyone kind of knows, but no one's really just saying it as blatantly as this. This is like, I killed her. You have to prove it now. Like it's all on you. And he just walks away. And yeah, I think this is the moment that really does get to Columbo. I wrote here, he plays the game because the killer usually prefers to play the game, and that's the best way to like get things out of the killer. But the reality is that while Mayfield hasn't beaten Columbo, he is winning in this moment. And him pointing out that you don't have the motive and you can't get it, that drives Columbo mad, because there is no reason this guy should be out there doing these things, because it's just to get credit, and he doesn't even really understand that yet. But that's all it's about. I think he can tell the motive is as petty as something like that. All right. Let's see here. Cut to Columbo goes to ask Heidemann why she was upset after the surgery. He doesn't know. Heideman's like, sure, she didn't like Mayfield, but he just acts that way because that's what talented people act like. All throughout this, though, Heideman is rubbing his left arm throughout the conversation as if something's starting to go wrong with his heart again. Columbo doesn't notice that, though. Medical stuff makes him uneasy. He's like not even really looking at Heideman. He's looking at everything except for Heideman because the medical stuff makes him uneasy. This leads him to pick up a pair of tweezers as he's just trying to keep his mind busy. And as he's doing it, he's examining it just idly. And while he's doing that, he sees some words written on them. And he takes it over to the light, and it says, let's see here. What is the exact name of the company?
Marcus and Carlson Medical Supply Company.
Thank you. Which, the Marcus and Carlson comes out to MAC if you write it out in all capital letters with an abbreviation. And it turns out that that's what she actually wrote down. And Columbus kind of kicking himself. It's like, capital letters. It was an abbreviation. I should have known that. I should have figured it out. And he's like saying this to Heideman, Heideman's like, what the hell are you talking about? So while he's in the room, he picks up the phone and he calls Mac. He calls Marcus and Carlson Medical Supply and says, hey, did Sharon call you to ask about some stuff? She did. And she made an appointment with a chemist. And the receptionist says she remembers because she was so insistent and was very upset. Now, that's all the information. Don't know why she wanted to talk to a chemist. So we cut to Columbo doing some more pavement hitting. And here he talks to some of the supply staff, some of the medical professionals that work in the supply closet, basically for the hospital, who looks up, hey, what do we buy from Mac? We buy a bunch of stuff, tweezers. Yeah, that's one of them, a bunch of other things. But the only thing that would have anything to do with a chemist are the sutures. And so this leads Columbo to like kind of down a little path to find out what's going on here. And at this point, I get pretty excited. I think this is like a good sort of breaking of the tension for us as the audience. Like, yeah, Nimoy is winning, but now Columbo's back on it. He's got something here. He's pulling on the thread. He's pulling on the suture, and he's going to get to something eventually, right?
Right, because a lot of times it's like, well, how is he even going to figure it out? And almost from the beginning, we know he has to figure out the suture. It's just how is he going to get there because there isn't an obvious path there.
Yep. So yeah, that leads him to a specialist that can tell him about sutures. He wants to find out how they work. So the specialist takes him to an operating room to sit in the theater above the operating room. Something like,
Don't bring your junior mints in there, okay?
Exactly. And he's still very queasy. He can't even look over the edge down onto the operation at all. He's looking everywhere except for down there. So he asks for a verbal explanation. This is helpful for us because as the audience, this is the first time we really get a lot of this information. We don't fully understand what's happening. Sharon alluded to the possibility of this, but we don't understand exactly what could be the mechanism of how it would happen. So the specialist explains, there's different kinds of suture. There's one kind that is permanent and it's very strong, much stronger than thread. It's meant to last forever. It's permanent. Then Columbo's like, is there non-permanent? Why would there be non-permanent? So, well, there's dissolvable kinds that you can kind of put on wounds, and it's meant to dissolve over, a matter of weeks. And Columbo's like, wait, huh? What would happen if you were to put that on like a heart valve? And the doctor's like, oh, well, then in that case, it would maybe last for a couple of days because of the pressure. And then after that, the heart valve would fail, and that person would die. And at this point, Columbo's like, oh, I think we have something.
We have something, and also this is the first time we really realize this. Oh, someone else is in danger too.
Yes, exactly, and that's basically him going right to Heideman to say you should get a second opinion. You should talk to someone else, another surgeon, have them take a look. I think that would be a really good idea. And Heideman's like, "What? No, this is like the best surgeon in the country. What are you talking about?" And while Columbo's about to get to the point to like really convince him, Mayfield, who controls Heideman and his visitors, bursts in and yells at Columbo to leave Heideman alone. Columbo goes, okay, you're in charge here. He goes out in the hallway and waits for Mayfield. And basically, the first thing he says, like, I learned all about sutures. That's a fun thing.
Guess what I did today?
Yeah, I learned a new thing. And Mayfield said, what's your point, Lieutenant? For example, suppose somebody used dissolving sutures to tie things together in Heideman's heart, just for example. That would kill him. And wouldn't everybody think he just died because of his condition? And Mayfield's like, well, it's a different color. Like, that just wouldn't happen. And then Columbo said, well, maybe someone dyed it. And Mayfield says, that would be murder. And and then Columbo's like, well, that would explain why Sharon was so upset. And Mayfield at this point just starts laughing. Like, and it's the weirdest thing we've seen from a villain so far, where it's just like he's not going to entertain this anymore. I wrote down, it's chilling. You don't really believe all those foolish things you're saying, Columbo, do you? And Columbo has fully broken now, and something we've never seen from him before. Slams his hand down on the desk and just says it. I believe you killed Sharon, and you are trying to kill Dr. Heidemann. And Mayfield just leans back, and it's like, you're incredible. You are remarkable. You have intelligence, perception, and great tenacity. And you, like you said, Mike, I think he knew this right from the beginning. He knew this all about him. He knew he was a formidable opponent, but he says, you have everything except for proof. It's like, ugh. And he leans forward while he says that. And I'm like, Jesus, this is incredible stuff here.
Right. I mean, it's almost like a payoff to the entire series so far.
Yeah.
At this point, to see Columbo kind of like crack a bit here. And we know why it's happening. Because he doesn't have time to play the usual Columbo game. There is a ticking time bomb. Heidemann is in danger right now. Who knows when the suture is going to dissolve? He has no time frame there. It could be at any moment. He cannot just kind of wait around and wait for Mayfield to make a mistake again. Plus Mayfield's being a shit, right? He's basically laughing in Columbo's face. He actually has finally reached a little bit of a limit. I think it is still calculated. He is going on the offensive for a reason here, but it is also, no, he is legitimately mad. This guy has killed 2 people, one of them under Columbo's watch, right? Who knows? If he could have figured out earlier, Harry might have lived. And now a 3rd person is in danger. He's pissed.
Yeah, and I think, like, even without the ticking time bomb, right? I think Columbo's realizing, oh, this is someone who has been playing a game his entire life. He is always playing other people, and he does it to get ahead, to take advantage of people, to use people, and now in this situation to get away with murder. And Columbo's someone who also is often playing a game. He deploys it strategically, though, to help people and to solve problems and to solve murders and to get answers and to get justice. And I think this is his polar opposite. This is his Mordecai. This is the showing what the evil version of him is. And I think
it's the Columbo with a mustache and beard.
It is.
Goatee. Yeah.
Yes. And I think Columbo's just like, I actually cannot suffer the thought of this man being out in the world. And it really, like, someone using this power that I have to do what he's doing drives me mad. And I really awesome to see that happen in this moment. You're right. Culmination of the series.
And I mean, the next line, like, Columbo saves Heidemann's life immediately. He just says, like, look, if Heidemann dies, we're going to have an autopsy, aren't we? And we'll know if it was dissolving suture then, right? Just like telling him, like, right then. Well, you can't let him die now, because then we're going to know.
Yep. And so, but Columbo puts the ball back at his court and just leaves. He leaves. And he's like, I'm going to see how you're going to handle this. Let's see if we could, and he doesn't even try to hide it going, this is so good. So Mayfield immediately calls about the afternoon medicines. He's got to come up with a plan. He has one right away. He goes and tampers with Heidemann's medicine because the medicine hasn't been given out yet. He pours something in there, basically something that's going to make him look really rough, put him in really rough shape, something he can use to say, the valve is failing. We need to put in a new one. The first one didn't take. They get all the surgery set up. And let's see here. Mayfield gets the OR prep to replace the valve, which isn't operating properly. The surgery is very dramatic. And only more so because someone is watching. Columbo doesn't try to hide it, and this time he is not queasy at all. He is staring dead on, watching this surgery happen, because, the queasiness is something else. This is him in his element, being like, I forced you into this situation. You need to fix this thing that you did, and if you do, when you do, you don't have a choice. It's either this guy dies, and we're going to have an autopsy, or you perform this surgery and try to pull some maneuver, and I'm going to watch you do it, and I'm going to catch you then. And so he looks up again, tries to see if he's there. He's gone missing, and then what happens next happens.
Yeah, well, but it's such a good hero moment when he is just watching intently that whole episode of being queasy about the hospital stuff, not being able to look when he was in the observation deck before that.
Yes.
This is like his Aragorn opening the giant doors in Helm's Deep moment.
Yes,
Right. This
yes.
is the hero shot for Columbo.
It's really good, and we do see him from like a downward angle, looking up at him, and just him staring down intently, like the angel that he
Framed
is.
well.
Like, yes, it's
Framed well.
it's good stuff. So the surgery ends, and just as it does, Columbo comes in with a warrant, some police, and a bunch of independent doctors. Columbo's in OR scrubs, as are the doctors. The police who aren't are standing right at the doors to make sure no one goes anywhere. And it's time to search everything. Columbo wants to look at everything. Mayfield throws a fit at this. It's like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And he tries to push back Columbo. He kind of loses his cool. And he grabs Columbo and pushes him out of the way. And Columbo stops him. The police kind of get in the way. And Mayfield calms down a little bit. So Columbo does search everything. And he talks to the doctors who had been watching Mayfield, and they say they can't find anything out of place. And everyone says that everything Mayfield did was acceptable, and there was no dissolvable suture on Mayfield or any of his staff or any of his equipment. Columbo's still not satisfied. He's like, you know what? We're going to turn this whole place upside down, and I'm going to go wait in the office. So we cut to Mayfield's office, and Columbo gets confirmation. There really was nothing. No dissolvable suture anywhere on anyone. And the detectives that were looking are like, no, it's impossible. We looked at everything. There is no way that stuff is anywhere. And Mayfield's won. And he looks over at Columbo. He's like, you look dismayed, Lieutenant, in that Nimoy voice. And it's just like hearing him say that, that's going to set him off. But Columbo goes, this one is on me, isn't it? I really thought I had you, but this one's on me. And Mayfield just says, don't worry, you'll find someone else to harass. And Columbo drops his OR scrubs, the operating room scrubs, and he just throws him over there on Mayfield's couch, and he leaves. And we see Mayfield finally actually have a human emotion, which is just relief. I got away with it. And he sighs.
Big sigh.
Yeah, big sigh. And it's you're like, man, okay, how is Columbo really going to get out of this? And immediately he jumps back into the room, and he walked probably 2 feet, and he realized what happened. He says, you really had me going. You're a surgeon. You're always so cool. And that's why it just struck me that when you blew up in the operating room and grabbed me and pushed me back there, that was not you. That was out of character. And so there was only one thing we didn't search. And you know what that was? And he picks up his OR scrubs, and he finds in his pocket the dissolvable sutures, picks it up, and he shows it to Mayfield, shows it to Leonard Nimoy, who just looks at it, looks defeated, does the eyebrow thing, and that's it. Credits.
There's the big eyebrow.
And it was a big eyebrow. It's just an incredible episode of television. It is a masterclass.
It is, and so much of these episodes, I bet the first idea is just Columbo in a hospital, and what can that look like, right? And boy, did they just find all of the best ways to do that. The really sort of interesting thing going on with the intentions of the murder, and how so much of what Columbo knows about is just the cover-up for his real plan. Nimoy as this incredible foil, like you said, right? And being more devious, more sinister than our average killer, finally getting that big blow-up moment from Columbo where he actually does get mad. And that's just an all-time great scene in the series. Great supporting cast. Yeah, it's got just about everything.
Yeah, I think it really does feel like if you'd been watching this entire time, you have such an attachment and an understanding of Columbo and how he behaves, and it's really quite. Well, sorry, Wicked just started playing on my TV for some reason. Okay, Google, turn off my office TV.
No one mourns the wicked.
Yeah, apparently now I've turned down the volume of you there. There we go. All right, we're back in business. And that payoff that you mentioned, it really is like, one of the reasons you watch TV is to you spend a lot of time with characters, you build a relationship with them, and you want to see them grow and change. And that doesn't always happen with a show like this, but what we can get is a little bit more depth and knowing that this rage can be inside Columbo and him, and knowing what it takes to set it off. Like, I fully understood every emotional beat of Columbo's character in this episode because we have spent so much time with him, and all of the other enemies he's faced so far, all the other villains have not been able to set him off like this because he was always in control. And this is the first time he felt like he wasn't, because he met someone that just is not even controlling himself. He is a force of nature Mayfield is in this episode. So just a very cool thing to witness. And I think it was a really good, the writers had a good grasp of the characters and what they were trying to get across, and they nailed it. All right, Mike, we have a ranking of episodes to do, and we have the Killer Hall of Fame. This will be the season 2 Killer Hall of Fame that we'll get to. Let's do the ranking of episodes first. I'll go over the list real quick. Suitable for Framing is up first. That's one where the art critic kills his wealthy aunt and tries to frame her nephew. That's a very good one. Then Murder by the Book, which is the first one of the TV series. That's the one that was directed by Steven Spielberg. Etude in Black is number 3. Then The Most Crucial Game, Lady in Waiting, Blueprint for Murder, The Greenhouse Jungle, Death Lends a Hand, Dagger of the Mind, Short Fuse, and Dead Weight. And I think, for me, everything from Death Lends a Hand and up are really good episodes. And then I enjoy all the rest, but they're just like kind of fun.
Yeah.
And silly. This one is the best.
It's the best. Straight to the top.
Yep, straight to the top. Number one. Yep. Without a doubt. A stitch.
Yep. And I mean, God, I've seen this episode. It's probably the third time I've watched this episode now, and I just am I am just glued every time, Jeff. Can't look away. So interesting. It has its moments of fun, and it has less of those than a lot of the other episodes. Being honest too, it does know to take itself a bit more seriously. You have like the silly roommate, you had the thing with the egg and being sleepy early on, but otherwise this is a pretty dramatic episode.
Yeah, and I think you get the thing where I think if I was first watching this series, I'd be like, I don't want Columbo to have to face down like a potential serial killer psychopath. That's not what this show should be. It should be upper class people who get in above their head and kind of think they can get away with everything because of their status, not because they are just so good at this. And then for them to do exactly that and pull it off in this way to the point where it is the best episode, it's like I think the degree of difficulty was higher, and the fact that they met it and then surpassed that, very impressive.
But importantly, Mayfield still very much upper class, still using his job and his position in society and at the workplace to his benefit to hurt other people and to try to get ahead. Again, all of this was about getting credit for some fancy medicine so he can get prestige and further his career more. That's the only thing that matters.
Further his status, because he already has money. We saw his house. He doesn't he just wants the credit.
Doesn't really seem to care about women. We see that too. So what matters is just that professional prestige.
You're right, and it's I think he's the first one that fully understands that he is using all that stuff to his advantage, and all the rest just kind of accept that as, well, that's just the normal state of things. This is who I am. And they don't realize that they have these advantages, and he does. Which is why he's also certainly in the Killer Hall of Fame for season 2. Season 2 right now we have Paul Hanlon, The Most Crucial Game, Jarvis Goodland, The Greenhouse Jungle. Is that right? Yes, this is the right one. And then Lillian Stanhope and Nick Frame, Dagger in the Mind.
I think we're trying to do it to 3 for a season.
Right.
So we'd have to get rid of somebody, and I think Jarvis probably goes away at this point.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. That The Greenhouse, another episode that I did really enjoy. But yeah, I think we drop him. I like everyone else here a little bit more.
Lillian Stanhope and Nick Frame are big sillies. They're kind of a little bit too big sillies, but they can stick around for now. We still have some episodes left in season 2, Jeff. In fact, we are actually now only 2 episodes left in season 2, if you can believe it. So we've made some progress. Proggies for sure.
Absolutely. We're getting through it. Is it Dr. I want to see Barry? Yeah, Dr. Barry Mayfield. There we go. Barry Mayfield.
That's his name, Barry.
Barry. Yeah.
Barry.
I don't think we heard anyone refer to him as Barry except for maybe the very first time he was introduced. Maybe written down somewhere.
I don't think his parents call him Barry.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a Barry.
They call him Dr. Mayfield.
This is my son, Dr. Mayfield. He's in kindergarten. Okay, Mikey, I think that is going to do it for another episode of Columbros. What do we have next?
Hear what's next? Yeah, please. Next episode, Jeff, is the most dangerous match. This is the chess episode.
Oh, I love chess and TV.
This episode actually happens just a little bit after the match of the century between Bobby Fischer and Russia's Boris Spassky. So chess was on the mind of the American public at this time. So this will be a fun one. Maybe not as good as a Stitch and Crime, but it'll be a fun one.
Yep, I'm always a sucker for hobbies and sports and competitions getting in the intersection of international politics. That always, that's one of the reasons I like Rocky IV. It's
sure
one of the reasons I watched Miracle 50 times and will continue to watch it for another 50 times. This, I'm sure I'll get a little bit of that from this. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't think I've ever seen this episode, so I'll watch it and we'll talk about it on Columbros next month. Mike, does that sound good?
Sounds fantastic.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with me and talking about this. Thank you, everybody, for listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. If you're listening to this when it first comes out, you certainly do, and we appreciate it. We'll keep doing these. I really like it. Really glad we got to do this episode. Let's get out of here. Thanks once again, everybody. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye.